Today we're going to have a conversation with Paul Vawter, the founder of V-Carbon. He has invented a completely foamless shoe. I have actually run it, and it is quite amazing. He's going to get into the technology, the biomechanics, and just how this shoe might eventually come to market.
Hi, everybody. Sam from Road Trail Run, and we're here with Paul Vawter of V-Carbon. And I met Paul's and his invention 2 or 3 years ago, and have been following his progress. What Paul has developed and has now done quite a bit of testing, and I've run in them, is a completely foamless shoe. So don't tune out right now. It actually is pretty amazing, and it actually works. So, Paul, give us your 2 cents worth on V-Carbon and completely foamless shoes. How does it work? Where did you come from? What the heck's the story? Go ahead.
Well, first question, Sam. Can you see me?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Because I can't see myself. For some reason, I got off the screen. And as long as you can see me is all that matters. Yep. Anyways, yeah, my name's Paul Vawter. And Sam, first of all, I've got to say, it's been a joy to work with you because you're open to new ideas. And the reason why I reached out to you, Sam, is because, we met, 2 years ago? Well, we haven't actually physically met, but CJ Albertson had one of our shoes in Boston, 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And you got to try the shoe then. And part of the reason why I reached out to you, I don't know anyone harder working in the industry. The amount of content that you have to review and get out is like 4 jobs for anyone, And so I reached out to you. And of course, you got to try the shoe. Now, what's taken place in that 2 years since you tried the first versions of V-Carbon, we really had to change the design because that version was not legal with WA. So that was a composite shoe that you had. And of course, WA requires everything to be single wall. So we had to, it took about 6 months. But I've had a lot of experience in my professional life. I owned a company called Dynamic Tooling. And what we did, Sam, we developed first articles really for the biggest companies on the planet. So if you were, say, GM and you had an airbag that was, injuring people, well, you would call up someone like Dynamic Tooling and we would develop those products. And more importantly, I had developed wrap and tooling processes where we could do this much faster than typically machining molds. And so we had, and then the company grew and grew, and we had, of course, we had Ford and GM, and then we went into medical with Baxter. We started picking up defense contractors like Rockwell, and then we started patenting these tooling processes. And so, but every day we're still making parts, designing parts, and composite parts for these brands. And of course, I had already had 10 years carbon fiber experience when I was real young because I owned a windsurfing company. So for 10 years,
cool.
Yeah, so we were making them out of carbon fiber and sending them all over the world. And so once I got into plastic injection molding, that's really the holy grail, because now you're dealing with real money with the biggest companies on the planet.
So you say plastic injection molding, and today we're going to talk about a completely foamless shoe. So tell us a bit about the genesis of the foamless shoe and what is kind of the theory behind it. I've run in them, one on each foot with other shoes, such as the Invincible Run from Nike. And it is a remarkably different, but also familiar experience. It doesn't feel odd, despite what it may sound like. So describe it to us. What is a foamless shoe?
Yeah, so what it is, Sam, is that when I looked at the foam shoe, it was primarily my experience with Nike. They had approached my company about doing their prototyping. And, you know, a lot of times failures in life is where we actually end up.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of failures in life. And one of the failures with Nike was because we were developing all these products for the biggest companies on the planet. Of course, Nike sent a couple people. Well, they had sent SLA models. Just they wanted to do their prototyping here in the States to speed things up. And we couldn't even come up with even close with a financial arrangement. And so as I'm driving home, my kids were out in the backyard jumping on the trampoline. I had an expensive pair of Nikes on at the time. I jumped on the trampoline and I thought, God, this is odd. I'm still feeling that pressure under the bottom of my mats and my heel bone. So I immediately took off my shoes, and then that pressure went away. And I thought, well, that's because this trampoline's, you know, going down a foot. So I walked to the side of the trampoline, and I still had my shoes off, and where the big steel springs are, and my foot only went down about 3/8 of an inch. And it was more comfortable than jumping in the middle of the trampoline with my, you know, at the time, you know, $200 Nikes. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, you don't even need foam.
Cool.
You know, and so that's where the original idea came in. So where it started was very, very crude. So I don't know if you can see a picture of how crude this shoe is. This got its nickname as the Franken shoe. It was horrible. It weighed 2 pounds. It was the clunkiest thing in the world, but you have to start somewhere, because the issue with the Foamless, it's never been done. In fact, according to the U.S. Patent Office, it's never been done. And of course, according to WA, it's never been done. So we didn't have anyone to follow. There was no, it has no relationship to a plated shoe or even a foam shoe. So what we did, we started with this, and they started getting a little bit better. You know, just a little bit better. Then we thought, well, you know, we had some, you know, crazy ideas, and it just started getting more refined. And then I'll even show you some other models, and you can see here that this has, you know, your traditional, more, you know, spoon shape. And then we started saying, well, Sam, so yeah, we've got a lot of ground to cover, and hopefully up to this point, it's been very fascinating and entertaining for your viewers to actually hear about a new operating system. You know, don't get me wrong, Sam, I'm old enough to remember the very first foam shoe in 1972.
Yeah, I ran marathons in them. There wasn't much to them.
I mean, I remember when we were all running on Adidas, and when the first foam shoe came out, we were poking it. It was unbelievable. It was so, so I just want, you know, of course, the majority of your followers, they don't know any other product, right?
Right.
They didn't grow up on vulcanized rubber shoes, you know, so, but I'm just saying that it was really a revolutionary product. But 50 years later, you know, companies.
Hey, Paul, while we're 50 years back, a comment a second on Nike Air, because that was the next kind of innovation after kind of slabs of EVA foam. And I ran on all the original ones, and I had my PR in the Air Mariah. So what, you know, when we talk about air, there's carbon, there's foam. What is kind of the reaction of air, for example, in the Alpha Fly? How does that compare to a trampoline?
Now, you're talking about the AirPods themselves, or what part of it?
The AirPods themselves, that technology.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, I could probably give you a 1-hour dissertation on that. AirPods themselves, you got to realize when they came about was in automotive. What we would use these for in automotive were in your RVs. You know, when you would load down an RV, you would load up your airbag.
Right.
We've seen them in lowriders, right? The lowriders, you have a nitrogen tank. and they jump their cars
Yep.
up and down, right? So
That's a
these,
California thing. We don't have those in New Hampshire. We got too much
so
snow for those things, even to raise
so
them. But go ahead.
the reason why we don't want to use this product in our product, because we believe that we have something that is many, many, many times more powerful by keeping the foot suspended in space. We don't want, this is usually a thick polyethylene right here, and it's very soft. What we want to do, we want to use that rigid carbon to load up your energy to really turn you into a human catapult. Now, what this does here, and this is my own humble opinion, just from a materials guy, if I saw this product, I think one of the reasons why this shoe, even though it almost weighs 2 ounces more than this shoe, at least in the size 11, it does.
That's about right. Yep.
Yeah. So, but yet a lot of testers on the internet, I won't name them, but they're independent guys, have not seen a huge performance difference between these two shoes.
I'm with the between those two. I'm with the Vaporfly. I think it requires a very specific strike, despite the broad heel, despite the stability. But now, when we look, that's the world record shoe as of right now for men. And as you look at the future with V Carbon, let's talk a little bit about where you're headed. Folks are going to want to know, eventually, hopefully they'll be able to run them, try them. So give us a little bit of a sense of where you're headed. What's your next steps in terms of product and so on?
Okay. Yeah. In fact, I'm glad you kind of pulled us out of that conversation, because, performance is it's a whole area that we really can't comment on because we don't have a production product, so we're speculating, because we're materials experts, what the V Carbon will be able to do. But
you've without getting into names, you've had some pretty serious elites try the shoe, and without saying who and what were some of their comments with your prototypes?
I think everyone that's been on the shoe has been really impressed by the speed of the shoe. They do feel the energy return, but there's no foam. And this is what's tough, because if someone would feel that shoe and just walk across the room, they would see how fast the V Carbon responds. So the V Carbon, it takes foam, believe it or not. You won't know it until you get on a V Carbon and you compare it. It takes foam a long time to compress and come down, and then respond.
Even the super foams, like the Zoom X foam.
Absolutely. Okay. Because they're still a friction-based product, meaning that that's how it gives you cushion, is I'm going to resist your foot on the way down. And what happens is that when you are on any foam shoe compared to V Carbon, the V Carbon is going to be quite a ways ahead, meaning that from your touchdown to toe off, because it doesn't go through what one reviewer called, he named it. He said he called it delay of the squish.
Okay.
A guy named Scott Boatwright coined it, because that was the first thing that he noticed. He says, Paul, this shoe already has me going on my next stride.
I felt the same. There's no delay. Yet it's not. People are going to think, oh my God, it's a frame, it's a trampoline thing. It's going to be harsh. It's going to be hard. It is not. It feels a little different stepping into them, and we often hear shoes are sold by step-in feel, which to me is only part of the story. It does feel a little different. It does feel like there, you know, you're not kind of sinking way down into the sock liner. Although you can add, you put a sock liner in it.
Yeah.
And then all the foam. So, you know, when we often see on the internet, and I don't want to criticize, but these silly videos where people are squishing the heel of the shoes, you know, and I said, oh my God, that really has not much to do other than it's showing how much softness there is. So here you don't feel that kind of squish, but you feel very direct. It's very direct, even walking.
Yeah.
And pleasant. It's not unpleasant, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been in development for coming on 7 years. I mean, you know, Sam, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of hours into this. And the early versions were very brutal, you know. I'll be the first to admit. I mean, I think we could get a runner maybe a block, you know, on our first shoes.
Yeah, okay.
And he'd come back and he'd say, God, this thing's fast, but man, it kills my foot, you know. So no, it's been definitely a work in progress. And you know, and it's so new, the technology is so new. Honestly, Sam, I could tell you there's more we don't know about it than do, you know. Meaning that foam has had 50 years to develop, and you know, billions of dollars of all the brands focused on it. And so where V-Carbon is today could be a totally different place, you know, even 5 years from now, you know.
So what are the implications for making this kind of shoe versus foam in terms of speed to market, sustainability, weight, etc.? When you get to what you want to do for production?
Yeah. So for starters, I'm glad you asked that question, because for starters, the chassis is 100% recyclable.
Okay.
The second thing, we haven't had a chassis go flat. We've got over 1,000 miles on one of them. And if you don't overstress plastic, it'll flex millions of times. The reason why a foam shoe goes flat is because it's plastic also. I mean, PIBA is nylon. Yeah. And what happens is when you have air bubbles and when you come down at 400 pounds, you're especially on a concentrated small area, and you can see that in your insole. When your insoles, what happens is that you're taking the plastic beyond where it can be, and you get a crease. So you have millions of air bubbles, right? So if I take a straw and just, you know, next time you're at the store and you get a clear straw, just pinch it and you'll get a crease. So meaning that if I didn't bottom out the foam, the foam shoe would never go flat. It wouldn't. Yeah. But the foam shoe at a durometer about a Shore A 40-ish only has about a 40 PSI compressive strength. Sam, a big guy like you coming down at 400 pounds, your mets are so tiny. Let me grab my little, I want you to see. Now, this is an anatomically correct model. If you're a pure midfoot striker, can you see how small these bones are right here?
Yeah.
And then your heel bone right here is like a little tiny talon. You can generate over 1,000 PSI if you're a pure heel striker. And you can generate on your mets 500 PSI. And we tested it. And so, again, I'm going to be very careful how I say this. Foam doesn't stand a chance. You've got something coming down on it that's so much more force than foam can withstand. And so that's why it goes flat, if that makes sense.
So the Kevlar itself, the Kevlar mat, over time, will it lose some of its, I guess, what would you call it? Tensile strength? Will it get softer?
Yeah. It's actually not even that taut. You'd be surprised. It's really not that taut. We don't run even the Kevlar mesh that, because we want it to conform somewhat to your foot. We don't want it like a drum on a snare drum, you know?
Right.
We do want it to be able to conform to your foot, because, you know, you have so many different foot topographies. You have, you know, high arch, low arch, I mean, just, there's basically
Oh,
what, seven or
so
eight.
how will it treat a high arch? I tend to have a high arch versus a flat arch.
So let's go back to this. So what this is going to do is that when you
Lift it
come
up, Paul.
down
Lift it up. Yeah.
when you come down here, it's going, as you come down here, this actually is going to raise up. So what this trampoline has to do, it has to equalize its own pressure. Now, all trampolines do this. If you think you have a problem with plantar fasciitis, then just jump on a trampoline and you'll feel that material immediately come up to support your arch.
Ah, that's interesting.
Think of this as a trampoline, except we don't use steel springs all the way around. We're going to use a chassis that flexes, but it still uses the same basic physics of a trampoline.
Okay. Now, tell us a bit about the manufacture, how in the future, and also the outsole, as we have an example here, is just basically glued on. There's a teeny touch of foam here, but how you might get them resoled,
So if and of course it would depend a lot on who we partner with. We can absolutely make replaceable outsoles. It's not an issue at all. They can literally snap on and snap off, so you can go trail running one day, street running the next.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
But as far as the outsole, I think a good example, the V carbon needs very little. It really doesn't need any foam at all, but it does need about at least a 1/4 inch of something, because if we get the outsole too thin, you will literally lose traction. If you're running on pavement, it will literally scooch out from underneath.
Right, because it's not giving.
Because what's happened is you still have a hard bottom to this. This chassis has a hard bottom, so it really has what's great about this shoe, it's incredible for trail running, because you have a built-in rock plate, number one. You will never feel it on the bottom of the foot, and the lateral strength of the chassis is so strong it can't turn under itself.
But we'd have to see that, on very uneven terrain.
Now we have really we have done quite a bit of testing in trail. I've never posted that. Maybe I should. But it's very, very rigid, the chassis. So we've yet to have even a turned ankle on a chassis, only because the product can't roll under itself. And so the other thing I just want to mention, maybe let's get back to your sustainability. So the chassis are 100% recyclable, and even the mesh itself, this material here, I don't really want to go into what it is and stuff, but it's 100% recyclable. So the shoe that you have on, both the chassis and the foot mesh that you're on, is 100% recyclable.
And in terms of like a carbon footprint of manufacturing versus foam, we have a chassis, we have the Kevlar plate. We'll forget about the upper, that's can be what it is. Compared to a injection molding or compression molding process of full foam.
Yeah. Now what we have already, it's molded exactly like a spike. So the chassis is. So there's really, so if you wanted to do some studies on that compared to foam, I'm not really here to.
Okay.
Again, I'm not the expert on foam, but I will say that having a product that's 100% recyclable, and it's coming out every 30 seconds. Foam processing is in the minutes. It's not in the seconds, because it has to grow, obviously.
And then in terms of the cost of manufacturing.
Now, cost of manufacturing would be very similar to a spike. You would have, depending on what upper that you wanted. Now, again, I'm just talking about the chassis and the foot mesh would be similar to a spike. A spike about 3 ounces of plastic also. So it would be very similar. So can it be sold for $75? Yes. Will it be sold for $75? No.
No. Good. Yeah. You got 7 years into it.
Well,
But
yeah, and
but
I
but
think,
when we're talking about $500 shoes, $275 shoes, I don't know what it costs them to make it. Probably a lot less than that. But
yeah,
I think it's important that the simplicity of the pieces here, right? The simplicity of the elements should make for a lower carbon footprint and a lower manufacturing cost, and also more flexibility in design, because you're really only molding a chassis, not a whole shoe, and all the
yeah,
supercritical foams and all that pressure stuff. Yeah, so
yeah.
this has
It's
been
very simple, and in terms of manufacturing, um, injection molding is available really anywhere in the world. I mean,
right.
even where I live here in Southern California, I could literally drive 20 minutes in 4 directions and go to 4 plastic injection molders that can absolutely mold these chassis all day long. So it doesn't take any kind of specialized equipment. It only took us, Sam, 7 years to make it simple.
Yeah, I love simplicity. So, Paul, this has been really fascinating. Tell our viewers, as best you can, what are the next steps? Because I think people are going to say, when can we get them? When can we get them? And I know
Yeah.
this is a hard process, but just realistically, what's next for you guys?
Well, what's next for us is, Sam, this has been a real expensive ordeal. We need to partner, either through venture or through brands. It's a really expensive process.
Yeah.
Because our patent, just to show you, we should have, we have filed all the patents. We've already heard back from the patent office. The great news is that there's never been anything like it. And so that process should be finalizing real soon. And the other exciting thing is, after 18 months, World Athletics finally said, yeah, you're
Oh,
basically.
did they approve the design and the?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
good.
yeah. Dr. Tony Arndt. We went around and around. That was a long process because we kept getting rejected, and I kept reminding them on their own rule book. And then I said, well, I want to appeal this. And they said, well, the only guy you can appeal to is Tony Arndt. Is he's the professor of biomechanics in
Yep.
I want to say Sweden. Am I close?
I
Switzerland,
don't know.
Sweden.
Yeah,
So I
maybe.
had
Yeah.
so I had to send a shoe to him, and he agreed with. Well, not only did I send a shoe, I sent a 6-minute video on it,
Okay.
explaining why it should be approved.
Right.
And he finally came back, and we posted that. I posted that correspondence on our Instagram, of him saying, yeah, it fits, and I do approve the construction.
So that's really great news. So are you considering also maybe with proper funding doing your own initial run,
Well, I would love that. I
so to
mean,
speak?
in a perfect world, right? We would all like to build our own brand, and in a perfect world. But I think it's more important to get the product out, even if it's not, your ideal. If we let's say I mean, if we end up partnering with a brand, that would be great too.
Okay, great. Well, this has been fascinating and super informative. And I've got to say, I really admire inventors who are dogged and really inventive. And this is really inventive in terms of running. It's completely different. It is unlike anything I've seen before. And it makes it proposes a paradigm shift in how we think about a running shoe, which is something that just tickles me. And I want to really thank you for letting me try them. And I've been pleased. I haven't run a ton in them, but I've been super pleased, and it's very promising. So I want to thank you for your time, Paul, and want to wish you all the best. And after we post the video, I'll make sure you know where it is, so people who comment, you can answer and discuss with them further. Okay.
Great. Great. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you, Sam.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye now.